All right, welcome to another episode of the Courtside podcast. Today we have a very special guest in the building, co-GM of the champions of all of C League, Kings of C League, 3%. We have Angel Rodriguez in the house, aka A-Rod, aka one of the up-and-coming great GMs that this league has seen. A-Rod, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, man, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, first of all, how does it feel to be slept on all year with Skyforce? To win all of C League is our biggest division. Not only did you win your division, you won the King of C League, which is a champion of each division, and you guys ended up champs. You knocked out the two-time defending champs in the Uptown 66ers, okay? A game that was, fairly close, but you guys took control and won it. When you guys assembled this roster, you and Yatter, GM and co-GM, when you guys assembled this roster as the season was going on, did you guys anticipate or think that you guys would be able to become the number one team in C League and end up Kings of C League?
So basically, the way that it happened was the season before, there was a C League team that I was playing for called Conalingus.
Right.
Right? That's Conalingus.
Yeah.
And that's basically a team that my boy Brian Machado, he made with me, Andrew Clemesha, and George Guerra, right?
Right.
That season, in the first round in the playoffs, we went up against Blacktop, and that they beat us twice that season, in the regular season and then the first one in the playoffs.
Right.
So they just had our number. There was nothing we could do. It's just one of those teams that had your number. Going into the off season, a lot of the guys were feeling down about losing in the first round and stuff like that. And I'm like, nah, let's give it a chance. Let's run it back. This is only my third season here at Courtside,
right,
overall. And then me being like a big Heat fan, Skyforce is like the affiliate to the Miami Heat, like the team name. So I hit up Yaya and I'm like, hey, are you having a C team this season? He's like, nah, I haven't thought about it. And I told him, like, look, if you trust me with building the roster, I got some guys that I can bring in, and then, we'll have you, and you can bring one of your guys, and I feel like it'll be like a good, a
good merge.
And he was like, yeah, let's do it, So he was on the team himself. He added Alvin onto the team, who, like, I hadn't known him up until then, but I knew his game because 3% rec, and I think we're about to be in 15, so I think, like, season 12, played Skyforce. So I knew how good, like, Alvin was. And, I mean, just, like, off the gate, when we were doing, like, our little practice runs and stuff like that, like, there was a lot of good chemistry with the team. And halfway into the season, we were like, okay, like, I think we can probably win it all, As far as the being slept on and stuff like that, we embraced it. The whole dangerously looming thing that's been going on in the comments from the team. We're like, hey, it doesn't matter if they're not mentioning us now. They're going to have to mention us if we win the championship. So let's focus on what we can control. And if we win it, then they got to mention us.
Right. It was a great run. And I love the fact that you had the vision to collaborate, because you could have, started your own team, but you added not only the Skyforce brand and name. They're an established organization in this league that had one King of Rec the previous season. And then you merged forces and got some of your best players. I think, like you said, I think the chemistry was really good. You guys had a combination of, Alvin, and then you had good guard play. You had hustle guys and Guerra. Like, I think the team had good chemistry and the pieces were well put. Now, in terms of your role, because obviously you were a player on that team as well, and I would consider you, like, you're one of the players in this league that's, like, I could tell you really love to be a GM. You love the whole process of constructing a team, managing a team, putting the right pieces together, then managing the players throughout the season. But obviously you still play. Is that a fair assumption? Like, do you love that part more than the actual playing part, or what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like to play. I wouldn't consider myself like the best player. I'm more of like a hustle guy, Lots of defense. They usually put me on whoever's the best player to try to stop him or to annoy him at least. But definitely when I first started here at Courtside with my original team, 3%, I don't know, I fell in love with like the intricacies of like building a team, finding the right pieces, getting the right role players on a team.
Right.
Because you can have a team that has a bunch of stars, but there's only one ball. And especially here at Courtside, it's a smaller court, a 4-on-4. Like you gotta have the right pieces together, and that was why, especially for Skyforce, like Alvin and Andrew, they get a lot of the talk, the mention, but our role players, Adrian Fernandez, and then our guard, freaking Juan Gordillo.
Right.
They were, I mean, to right now in the chat, I keep telling the guys, I'm like, hey, you two are the reason we won. Because, like, when our star guys, if they were having an off night, you guys are the ones that came in, and just, like, your effort alone is what helped us to succeed. So I think that's, definitely the GM part is what I'm loving more.
Yeah, and it wasn't an easy path. I mean, there was games that you guys were challenged throughout the season and in the playoffs. There was games that you guys were down and had to come back. As we know, C League is competitive in the sense of like teams want to win really bad. Like this is not a league where people come and just get their cardio in, have fun. Like people and players and especially the better teams compete. Like they'll do whatever it takes to win a game here at Courtside and a championship at Courtside. So you guys had your fair share of battles. What would you say was, and it doesn't need to be one, it could be maybe two or three, the toughest team or teams that you guys faced this year?
I mean, for sure, number one has to be Uptown 66ers. Like, they were back-to-back champs for a reason. And I don't know why people kept sleeping on them on the season, because they have a very good orchestrated team. They have a good coach. I've never heard the guy talk, but they have a good coach.
Yeah.
So Uptown 66ers definitely is one of the teams. That one, we had to be 110% focused on them. From this season, HMD would probably be another one, just because of how intense the atmosphere is with like their crowd. They have a very crazy crowd.
Yeah.
And I remember telling the boys, I'm like, hey, we got to make sure we have our own crowd coming into this game, because if not, like, we're going to get drowned out.
Right.
Like one misplay, one turnover, like, and that affects. That definitely, it's like a mental aspect of it. So HMD would be the second team. And then the third team would probably be the team that beat us in the season. I don't remember their name. I think it was like TPB or...
Yeah, TPB. Yeah. Tropical Park Boys.
We played them without Alvin that night, and they were just cooking us, man. They had this one player, I don't remember his name, I apologize. He was like a bald gentleman, but that dude was money from the mid-range. Like,
yeah.
I was on him, George was on him, Juan was on him, age, like, he cooked all of us. And it was just one of those games where we're like, there's nothing we can do. Like, we're hand and face all up on him, and he's just hitting shots. And funny enough, one of the guys on the team, I don't remember his name at all, but there was a guy on their team that the week prior, I was playing at Robert King, and I ran into him, like, randomly. And we were just like, hey, you want to get a run together? And I'm like, yeah. And we played, like, together. Like, first time I ever seen the guy in, like, my life. And then it was ironic that the very next week on our game, it was like, hey, what the hell? Didn't I just, like, meet you, like, a week ago? Hey, what's up? Yeah. So, very funny. Small, small world, small Miami.
Yeah, man, it is, for sure.
But, yeah, those three teams, 66ers, HMD, and TPB.
The HMD is tough. Not only, they have the youth, they have the talent, they have a star, in James, and that's a back and forth game. But I think the real difference makers, like you said, your role players. Teams have stars, but those role players and guys need to be willing to buy into their role. Meaning, on another team, you might be a guy that scores 20 points, but on this team, we need you to defend. We need you to rebound. We need you to make the extra pass and be unselfish. And I thought you guys were able to do that fairly well. When I first saw your team, I was a little bit concerned with so many, because you had talent around the board. So I think kudos to you and Yatter to be able to get those guys to buy into their role to be able to win a championship. Now, going into this next season, okay, and it's so many teams that I need to write it down, but you are the GM, general manager, owner, founder, coach, mentor, everything to 6 teams. We got 3%, which is your OG organization that you started, correct?
Yeah.
So in 3%, you've taken your talents, you've taken your GM talents to the Hoopers division, which we'll talk about in a second. You have two rec teams, which we'll talk about why you have two rec teams. You have a C League team. Then you have a new organization that you founded by the name of Force Company. And in Force Company, you have a rec team and you have a C League team. Okay? I want to know, first of all, why two different organizations? Why two different rec teams? Well, three different rec teams. How are you going to manage all of this? Who's the captains of the like? There's so many questions in this situation, so I'm happy we were able to get you on the podcast. Let's start first and foremost with your most talented team that competes in the highest division, 3% Hoopers. Who do you have? Why did you start this team? Give us all the details.
Yeah, so basically with Hoopers, just throughout my time here, being in Courtside and stuff like that, I've got to know a lot of guys here. I've met a lot of, new friends and stuff like that. And one of the friends happens to be Jeff Vargas. He played for our rec team last season. And whatever, like, I've gotten pretty cool with Jeff. And this season, I told him, I'm like, hey, look, I don't want you on the rec team. Like, I'm thinking of making a Hoopers team. I have some good pieces that are interested in playing for 3%. Would you be interested in being the captain and leading the team? And he was like 100% down for it. As far as like the team goes, basically some people might, recognize these names. I got Sammy, who played for Lee Roofing last season.
Sam Forrest.
Yeah. Back-to-back, two-time champion that season. He won in Vets and in Hoopers. So I got Sam Forrest. I picked up Rodney Simeon.
Yeah.
From, I think it was Team Indigo last season.
Yeah.
And then from picking him up, that's how I managed to get Gump to join the team as well. I know he's played a couple seasons here at Courtside before, and he's big-time friends with Rodney. He's boys with Jeff. And the last two guys that we picked up, I don't think they've played here at Courtside. One of them is Dante Swish. He's like a guard, probably one of the best shooters I've ever seen, at least in my life. I've never seen him miss. That's just me being biased. And then another guy, Darren, who, like, they've all been boys and they all play in the EX Athletics League, I believe.
Okay.
So basically it was just, they all wanted to join 3%. I'm like, hey, look, you guys are all friends. You guys are all boys, so chemistry shouldn't be an issue. And the fact that we got Jeff, Rodney, and Sam, who last season they were all in the all-star teams for the Hoopers division, I'm like, I think, depending on how everything works out on the floor, we have a good chance to make some noise this season with the Hoopers division.
Definitely, man. I mean, it's a super talented team. You got size. You got guard play and a point guard, and Jeff. Rodney Simeon is one of the best players. You can make an argument that the best player here in the league with his size, being able to shoot and score, definitely one of the best scorers. Sam Forrest is a champ and a big. Eugene Gump is another guy that plays a forward position, jumps out of the gym, could rebound, finisher type. Perfect fit with those four. And then, it's cool always to bring new guys into the league, which you managed to do, especially in that Hoopers division. Usually guys that come in the first time and go straight to Hoopers, it's because they're a baller and they're gonna put on a show. I'm guessing those guys are from like the Broward area.
Yeah, that's where they're from. So, they had been telling me that they wanted to play with 3% for a while since, like, my first season. And I'm like, I don't think you guys are a little too good for, like, my rec and my C teams, But when I was making the Hoopers one for this season, I'm like, hey, I have the opportunity for you guys to join. It's going to be slightly different because of all the talent. It's not like I've already told them. It's not like you guys are going to be, like, the main guys of your team. But, if you're willing to buy in, like, we can probably win the chip. I have faith in that team that they can probably get it done.
Awesome. So you have two rec teams and 3%. Who are on those teams, and why do you have two teams?
So originally, when we first started 3 seasons ago, I had just a 3% rec team, and it was basically led by Renzo Machado.
Yep.
And then another player called Ernie Perez. Basically, after that season, they wanted to. It's very stupid, but they each wanted to prove that they could lead, like, their own team, Like,
they both wanted to be the man.
They want to be the guy, So, like, one saying, we're not winning because you're trying to lead us, and, same thing vice versa. That's why last season, Renzo went to go play for Smooth Tattoos.
Yeah.
Right? and that was the chance for Ernie to lead 3%. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out. The roster that was orchestrated, it looked good on paper, but it didn't mesh well on the floor. We got bounced in the first round. But the point is, for this season, Renzo was like, all right, I'm coming back to 3%. Like, let's get the boys back together and stuff like that. And that's what we were trying to do. But Ernie still wants to, prove that he can lead his own team. So I'm like, okay, like, I'm not going to bother fighting with you guys about it. If you want to lead your own team, we're just going to make I took inspiration from Injury Hub because as they have so many teams, they usually have like an Injury Hub Elite and an Injury Hub Select,
Right.
Team in the Hoopers division. And I'm like, I'm just going to do that, whatever for rec and have a 3% Elite and a 3% Select division. And, basically Renzo and Ernie are the respected captains.
So who plays on each of those teams? You should have made it 3% Renzo, 3% Ernie would have been cool. But it's cool. Like the good thing about this podcast and why we enjoy doing it so much is because it gives you like the behind the scenes intricate details that are happening that even we don't know. Like we see a lot of changes within rosters and we see guys go to other teams and this and that. But we didn't really know all the details. So I think this is cool for even the people to hear it. So Ernie and Renzo have a beef on the court, essentially. They both want to be the man. So, I mean, that's a game we would like to set up. I don't know if that's something that I don't know how you would coach that or manage it. Maybe you sit halfway
Right
in the middle.
middle.
Exactly. So who is on Renzo's team? Who is on Ernie's team? And how did you construct those rosters?
So for the 3% that's being led by Renzo, it's more or less the same pieces from our very first season when we made it to the division finals and lost to Just Hoop in the
Right.
first season. Which, by the way, Jeff was one of our refs for that game, and I still blame him for not giving us that call when Renzo got fouled. Renzo was bleeding from the foul, and he's like, no foul. It's like, he's bleeding. How the hell is it not a foul? So I blame you, Jeff, for that one.
But isn't Jeff? Oh, he wasn't on that
He
team.
wasn't on. He was
Okay.
just, that's how I met him.
Right.
But as far as the roster goes for that team, it's Renzo Machado, his cousin Brian Machado, who
Okay.
played with me in Skyforce this season.
Yeah.
Andrew Clemesha, same thing. Skyforce. He's going back to playing for the 3% rec team, and then we picked up some 3 interesting pieces. We got Eddie Ramirez, who I think last he played for Everything Teeth.
Yep.
We got A-Rod, who the last rec team he played for, if I remember correctly, it was injury prone, like 2 seasons ago.
Yep.
And then we picked up Roman Gray. Roman Gray, he's been like a buddy of mine that I've been talking to a lot because he knows my brother-in-law, Derek, from Rusty Buckets.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been saying that, he wanted to play for a team of mine. I'm like, hey, we got a spot open. Like, if you're ready to join, you can hop in. And he was down to go. So that's Renzo's rec team.
Okay. So who's on Ernie's?
For Ernie's team, he's the captain. And then last season we had Justin on the team, Justin Drickler.
Yeah.
So he's back playing with Ernie. We got Jacoby, who he played for Skyforce a couple seasons ago. And
Athletic.
yeah, long, tall.
Yeah,
athletic,
yeah.
And I think the last time he played for was for True.
Right.
Played on the team.
Yeah.
So we got him.
Damn, you know your history, man. Your facts. You're like a courtside encyclopedia.
I mean, all the graphics that I do, like, I
yeah.
do my homework. But we picked up a backup point guard in Yamil Ortiz. He's probably not a name too familiar with people, but he's someone that knows how to play his role. He's always giving 110%, full energy, full defense, and he's a good playmaker. So everyone else on that team, they're very ball dominant. So I felt it was good to add Yamil as the backup point because he's someone that if things are getting out of control, he can, slow it down and get the team to start playing more of a team ball instead of just, a one-on-one ball.
Yeah.
The other 2 guys that are playing on the team, I don't think they've played at Courtside before. One of them, his name is Andre Ballard Jr. He's played at Miami Select, but I don't think he's ever played here at Courtside. And then Kayvon, who's boys with Ernie and Justin. He's
Nice.
played in the Culture League.
Okay.
But he's never been here. So both of them, I think, are making their debuts here at Courtside.
So as you're talking, all I could think about is the amount of group chats you must have. How many group chats do you have?
I got a couple. I mean, it's a lot. I got the Hoopers chat, the two
You
different
yeah,
rec
because you got to
chats.
separate all this. Like it might be 3%, but there's two different teams within that. So
Yeah, I mean, like
and
literally,
it's
if I go
and
to the page, it's like you got multiple chats for
man,
every
we need
season.
to do like a ranking, or we need to hear some stories because just in the group chats that I'm in on my teams,
Yeah,
right? Like I know that, and I've been on a lot of different teams, so I know some group chats are dead, and then others are like all day going on. We need to get GMs and like do a ranking of like what's doesn't have to be the best team they've ever been on or constructed, but like what's like the best group chat you've been on. I'm sure there's some legendary stories because sometimes there's group chats that are made through Courtside that even if they stop playing or whatever, like it's still just going on and people become friends. But damn, it'll be cool to like look through and see because these
there's
group chats like you have to have at least
there's
six.
definitely yeah. I mean, I think I have. I mean, yeah, because there's another team that I'm running this season that I got group chats with them also, and then Connor Lingus is running Miami Select, so that's another group chat.
Yeah, no, you
A
must
lot of
have.
group chats, a lot of group
Yeah, I
chats.
could imagine.
And
So
and some of them are pretty crazy. The stuff that happens in the chat,
I
So,
could imagine.
but
So then you have a C League team as well.
yes. So
3% C.
yeah, 3% C League team. It's gonna be their third season.
Okay.
All of these guys are like friends of mine that I've known. I want to say since like high school, growing up. The captain for that team is one of my boys, Dan Reyes. A lot of times when he plays, they always tag him as Max Struess because he looks a lot like
Oh,
Max
got you.
Struess.
Yep, I know what it is.
But yeah, he's the captain of the team, and basically it's running it back the same team from last season, but we added Ernie from the rec team to join the C League team. Last season
Nice.
we had Frankie Garcia on the team, and this season he's taking a break because he's getting married. So congrats, Frankie. But yeah, basically it's the same exact team. Dan Reyes, we got Jeff Ferguson. He's becoming, I think, one of the better, definitely defending guards at Courtside. Alain Bermudez, one of the top shooters whenever he actually makes it to the games.
Yeah.
Carlos Ramirez. So it's just a bunch of the boys. That's definitely a boys team.
So why do you create Force Company? Like you already had 3%. Why? What's the inspiration for Force Company? What is Force Company? Like, what's going on there?
So for Force Company, realistically, the only reason I made it is because I just have a lot of people hitting me up about joining 3%. And one thing that I learned from the season when we had Jeff on our rec team is you definitely shouldn't have more than like 6 or 7 people on a roster.
That's wisdom.
We had
Because
10
I saw you commented that on one of the posts we put to give advice to someone and some people are in a situation where they need more people to be able to cover the fee. It's obviously less. It's a team fee that we charge, so it's less money per person. Yeah. But if you have the money or willing to make an investment, I agree 100%. You have more than 6 or 7, and you just have unhappy people on that bench.
Yeah, no. On that season, when we had Jeff on the team, we had 10 people on the roster.
It's crazy.
And the thing is, it's like, like a lot of the people that were basically like the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th man, those were guys that in the first season were like starters.
Yeah.
Got heavy minutes, So basically, after that season, I basically told everyone, I'm like, hey, look, you guys, it's obviously an issue. Everyone's always complaining about like minutes and rotations and stuff like that. We're going to keep it a 6 to 7. It's going to be more money. But if you guys...
It's worth it.
Like, if you're going to be complaining about it, like, just,
pay an extra $20.
The way that I tell them is, like, just put $20 away, like, every week.
Yeah.
Up to the registration. Like,
right.
It's not, you're probably paying more on Uber Eats.
Right.
So just
For
put
sure.
20 on the side, and by the time registration comes up, you're going to have your money. And everyone pays. No, there's no freebies. Everyone pays. Everyone pays.
So what they have you for is just to construct everything. And you run the Instagram pages, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about how he offers services and making some of the best graphics, flyers, game day post, player of the game, and all that. And we'll make sure to shout you out. You're going to be doing a lot of work for Courtside this upcoming season, but you manage your team stuff, super clean, super nice content that you make. But anybody out there, any teams that have their own page and don't want to do it, or maybe can't do it, aren't capable or creative enough to do it, he'll take care of you. I'm sure you could give out your prices. We'll make a flyer or whatever. We'll work on all that. But it's always cool to have those graphics and stuff like that. So that's a little sidetrack. But But yeah, so you run these Instagrams as well. So with Force Company, what are those teams? What are those teams looking like?
Yeah. So again, basically the only reason why it was made is just because too many people were wanting to join 3%, and I'm like, we're just gonna have to make like a whole different team. 3%, obviously, in case no one knows like why it's called 3%. Obviously, I'm a big Miami Heat fan, and the season when the Miami Heat were going to the finals and the conference finals versus the Celtics, if people remember on ESPN, they said, oh, they have a 3% chance of beating the Celtics.
Yeah.
So that's where we came up with the name. It's like, all right, like 3%, we're new to courtside. No one's going to really know us. Let's accept the underdog mentality
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I like that. That's another thing we didn't know.
And then for Force Company, basically my second favorite team is the Spurs in the NBA, actually. So I just made it like a Spurs theme-based team. And, I mean, the rec team, it's a good team. I'm not going to lie. Like, my 3% guys have been like, damn, how'd you get these dudes on the team? And I'm like, well, they wanted to join 3%. So
Who do you got?
I think, I'm not sure if he played in rec before, but if not, it's going to be his debut. We picked up Serge.
Okay.
From Injury Hub. He had told me that he wanted to play for 3%, and I told him, like, hey, look, you got guys like Jeff, Eddie Buckets, Sparv playing in rec. If I can get you with the right pieces where it's not, true sandbagging kind of thing, I can probably have you on a rec team.
Right.
So we picked Serge up. Another guy that had been wanting to run with 3% was Cedric. He played for TFB last season.
Cedric's baller.
So we picked up him up as basically our starting, him and Serge are the starting two guards. And then our two bigs are Jay Swiss, who's boys with Cedric. The last team he played for was 87 Stingrays.
Yep.
And we picked up Nico, who also played in TFB with Cedric.
No, that's a stacked team. That team's gonna be one of the favorites for sure.
So those are the starters, and then on the bench we have Lester, who he'd been hitting me up to play for a C League team, and I told him, like, hey, look, this isn't gonna be C League, but if you're cool, playing kind of like that Klay Thompson role coming off the bench, like, you're more than welcome.
He doesn't back down from a challenge.
He was quick.
He just wants to play.
Like, I'm there.
Yeah.
So we picked up him, and then we picked up Adrian Fernandez from my Skyforce team that
Okay.
just won.
Yeah.
And for him, basically, it's a good piece because the starters are very,
heavy. Right.
But he's someone, like, I tell him all the time, like, you're like Dennis Rodman, dude. You get in there, and he can score.
Yeah.
I don't think he's shown it, like, at courtside, but he can score. I've seen him go off. But he's someone that gets hella rebounds, plays good defense, is always giving 110%. So I think adding him was going to be a good fit to complement the rest of the team for Force
sure.
Company.
I agree. That's well-constructed roster. I mean, you don't know until these guys play together, right? But I think you've done a hell of a job. Yeah, on paper. On paper, it looks good. Who's Force Company C League? How's that looking?
For the C League team, it's definitely more of an interesting team. It's kind of the same thing. Guys hitting me up saying they want to play for 3% C. I'm like, look, it's not going to happen. So you're just going to have to run with my second team. We have Angel, who he's played at Courtside before in the rec and the vets division, I think. Angel Cabrera.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know what that is.
So he's playing with us. The same Yamil Ortiz that's playing for the 3% led by Ernie.
Yeah.
He's the starting guard on that team.
Okay.
And then our two forwards are Omar Padilla. He played a while back at Courtside also. I think it's been a while, but he played here before. And then Marshall James is going to be our big man. He played for the 3% team last season.
Got it.
So those are the main dudes. Off the bench, I got Benny from Shooters Gang. He, signed with us this season. Trying to think what else I got. I got Benny. I got Hugo De Leon, who's joining. I know a lot of on Instagram, the Courtside guys, they know him because he's always
always controversial to say the least on there.
Yeah.
Shout out to Hugo. Makes it interesting, but I know he's always I don't know if it's trolling or I don't know if it's just
probably a little of both.
A little bit of both. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with his personality, but yes, he's definitely famous on there.
He's an interesting character.
Yeah.
Courtside Instagram.
For sure.
And then the backup big, he's making his Courtside debut. He's a friend of mine that I've played a lot where we do our practice runs at the GOAT gym. His name's Anthony. I've known him, same thing, since like high school. So, he's making his debut, and I'm like, look, for C League, I think you're going to be, perfect for the team. But that's the team. They're definitely probably more of the, I don't want to say underrated, but like like people are probably gonna sleep on them, you know. But I definitely feel that if Angel can play to how he's played before here at Courtside, and if Marshall, now that he's healing from his knee injury, he's getting back to form, like that's a good 1-2 punch with a lot of shooters around them.
Yeah. How do you find out about Courtside?
How did I find out?
Like, what brought you here? Because you're fairly new. We got some OG GMs, but we've been doing it so long that we know when somebody's like truly committed and really good at what they're doing, and someone that's gonna be here for a while. And you're one of those GMs and guys that stuck out. That's like, yo, this guy's doing it the right way. But you have a bunch of teams, but you're fairly new to the league. Like, how'd you find out? Where'd you see it? Who brought you? Like, how? What was that process?
Yeah, so I mean, I hadn't heard about Courtside like ever, to be honest. I never really played basketball like back then. I was always more of a soccer guy
Okay.
in middle school and high school. I didn't start playing basketball till after I was already like out of high school, just like like at parks, mostly JMP and Douglas Park. And then through work, I met Brian Machado,
Okay.
right? And through Brian, I met Renzo,
Right.
his
Cousin.
And then Renzo, like after a couple, like I want to say like a couple years, 2 years of us like playing like in parks and stuff like that. He mentioned to me, he's like, hey, there's like a league called Courtside and stuff like that. We should probably get the boys all together and see if we can make a team. And that's when I went on your guys' Instagram page. I started checking out your posts and stuff like that. I saw some of your live streams, and I'm like, this looks like pretty fire. Like, yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
We're already like playing ball almost every Saturday and Sunday. Like we might as well make it so it's more competitive, more official with like referees and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I mean, yeah, that's how it was. That's how I found out.
Damn. So shout
through
out
Renzo.
to Renzo. Yeah. Shout out to Renzo. OG in this league, best charge taker
Yeah.
in the history. This dude will stand in front of a truck and take a charge if it means they're gonna get a possession. And he's a baller. So shout out to Renzo.
I actually, on the first season, when the season ended, I was curious because everyone in the chat we were talking about it, and we're like, how many charges did Renzo actually take in that first season? So I went one by one on every game on YouTube to see how many charges he took. He took a total of 17 charges in the first season. 17
in
charges.
the whole season.
In the whole season. He had
17 charges.
He had 2 to 3 charges every game.
Wow. And you went back and watched possession per possession of a whole season?
Just to send it to the boys and be like, hey, let's see.
Damn.
Because we're always putting in the
That's cool.
chat, he's the
Right.
leader in charge. We're like, let's see if it's true or if we're just, capping.
Yeah. And how many of those was it called the block? I'm sure there had to be at least a handful
Yeah,
of those.
there was a couple that were.
So the
blocks,
attempts
but
have to be in the 30s. So 17 charges taken in one season. Respect to him for that. Respect to you to go back and watch every single possession. That's a cool story, man. A couple questions before we get out of here. Number one, who is the team that you've watched or faced, or one team that you looked at and you were most impressed by, or best team you've seen? Doesn't need to be a team you played or you probably weren't even a part of the game. It could be anybody, but a team you looked at and you're like, damn, that's a really good team.
it's gonna be 2 teams definitely. The first team I'm gonna want to say is Rusty Buckets 2.0, led by Chris. In the time when we were leading up to our first season at Courtside, the season before, the King of Rec game was his Rusty Buckets team versus the No Limit team.
Right.
So we went to the finals game to be like, oh, let's see what this is all about, And seeing his team play, they had Rodney, they had Jason on the team. I think they had Juan on their team as well.
Juan Suarez?
Yeah, Juan Suarez. Like just seeing them, the way that they played, how they were like actually, it's nothing crazy to do like complicated plays, but you can tell that it's not just like, all right, here, have the ball and make something happen.
Right.
Like, they actually moved as a team. So, and that's, what inspired me to be like, yeah, like I want to be like them. I want to be like Chris, how he leads them. I want the team to have success like Rusty Buckets,
So Rusty Buckets and Chris was an inspiration to you when you got started in this league.
Yeah, 2.0. And then the other team, when we started, I'm probably going to say Miracle Leaf. Miracle Leaf, I know a lot of people, they be downing on them just because they don't have a big, like a true big. But, man, they play. Like, everyone knows their roles. They got Eddie, who's the star player. He gets the buckets whenever he wants to. But, like, everyone on the team is just efficient in everything they do. Bessu's good at he scores whenever he gets the opportunity to. He can facilitate. He's a pretty big body, so he can help when it comes to defense and getting boards. Taj, I know when we played them, he was eating us in boards.
Yeah.
We had Rodney on our team, and he was eating Rodney alive on the rebounds. Andre has definitely gotten. I feel like he's gotten better, like as time has gone by, because he's
For
been
sure.
cooking
Yeah.
the last couple seasons. So definitely Miracle Leaf. I feel like Miracle Leaf, when they beat us the season before in the playoffs, I was like, see, that's what I was trying to create with Jeff on our rec team.
Right.
But they did it the right way.
Yeah.
So those would be the two teams, Miracle Leaf and Rusty Buckets 2.0. Shout out to Chris, the GM of Miracle Leaf.
For sure, man. So, and I know you said something very interesting, which your two favorite organizations in the NBA are the Heat and the Spurs, two organizations that have a culture of excellence, and they build a team. They don't necessarily build a team of just the best superstars like a Phoenix Suns or like to build a team and a culture. That's definitely what you're doing. I wouldn't be surprised. How old are you?
I'm 30.
30. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time you're 60, you have like 48 rings here and all different types of rings of courtside. Because like I said, you're a GM legend in the making. We know you play too. We're not disrespecting your game. And we're going to definitely see more of the game. And I know you couldn't play in the King of C League because you had to hold that puppy. If you didn't hold that puppy, it would have been running all over the court. And so I understand why you didn't play.
No, that was for the conference game before.
That was the conference championship.
HMD.
Right.
Yeah, our coach Derek, my brother-in-law,
Yeah.
he came and he brought the dog, and it's like, hey, Andrew, you gotta watch the dog. I'm like, why'd you bring the dog? And he's like, hey, don't worry about it, just watch it. And I'm like, all right, like whatever.
Yeah, hey man, whatever it takes.
Going into the season, I started off getting like a lot of minutes into the season, and for whatever reason, like. I mean, my shot just wasn't falling when I was playing, So it's like, all right, like I'm bringing defense in, but I'm not hitting my shots. And then Juan was bringing defense, and he was hitting his
Listen,
shots.
you're all about the team, which is what I respect. Favorite player to watch at courtside?
Renzo Machado.
Renzo Machado, the charge-taking machine. Hey, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Courtside Podcast. Continue to do your thing. Continue to lead these teams to championships. Continue what you're doing with the social media. Everything you're doing, the league appreciates it, and it's fun, man. So shout out to you, and thank you.
Nah, man, thank you for having me, guys.
All right, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Courtside Podcast.